Good afternoon to new participants. Can you hear me? Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Thank you very much. Today we are speaking about the international relations and about its political aspects. I can say that it is the main topic which connect international relations and political sciences. And both direction of science, international relations and political science study the topic about the diplomacy, tools of foreign policy, the influence of international situation, economics, society, into the politics in each country. And I hope it will be the most interesting for you while you are a specialist in international economics, because the general, the political aspects influence a lot on economics, and in opposite economics influence on international relations and international policy. And I'd like to first of all discuss the definition of main term for today. Maybe someone would like to have additional points and answer the question, how do you think, what is the difference between the term international policy and foreign policy? Can somebody explain? Maybe you can try to guess what is the more general term.
I try. Can I try?
Yes, of course.
I think international policy, it's more like wider definition. And international policy, it's about all countries, all countries. And foreign policy, it's maybe like about when you in one country is for one country, foreign policy, it's all other countries, but not their country. Yeah, just like something like that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anastasia was quite right, because we study foreign policy as the general objectives that give the activities and relationship of one state in its interaction with the other states. It means that in generally the foreign policy provides some state institutes. In spite, the international policy can be provided by international private groups, international non-government organizations, some movements, even some tourism or individual interaction can be a part of international relations. And also development of foreign policy influenced by domestic consideration, because we have some national laws, some rules, some traditions which influence on practical behavior of other states, and the content of foreign policy is to make a plan to advance specific geopolitical design. And only a few words about the geopolitics. Geopolitics, it is the main topic, the main part of political science, which include the main interaction, the main the possibility to study, to investigate the geographic influences on power relationship in international relations. One my colleague makes very interesting videos like cartoons about the geopolitics. I will share the link to your YouTube channel into group. I hope it will be interesting for you and useful maybe in other disciplines, in general development, how they understand some place of different countries in the geopolitical situation. And I want today pay attention on some often used terms of types of foreign policy. I hope you all hear about such types, but we usually use it into our conversations, but I'll only mention and only remind you some of them. One of the historical maybe type of foreign policy is a policy of imperialism. That means the military intervention and war economic methods like exploring the foreign markets to sell finished products and the purchase of raw materials and cheap labor. For a long time, the policy of imperialism was the main for dominated countries, for some powerful states which try to use other regions far from their home for some benefits for their own country. And they try to override their territories, not only by using their war weapons, but also for influence on the less developed countries and less developed economics. And for example, Great Britain have many colonies in Latin America, in Africa, Asia, and this country use different products, different materials for improve, for increase the benefits for its own economic development. Nowadays, we have some international law principles which not give the possibility to all countries over the world to use their direct pressure on the others. But at the same time appeared a term new colonialism, which means that some countries, some states, to control the others, use economic aid to undeveloped countries, and they indirectly exercise their influence upon them. Unfortunately, sometimes discussed the problem that Ukraine also can be an object of new colonialism, and that it can pay for a long time for all the aid and all the support which they have before from different countries and which it have nowadays as a military help. Because we should realize that our partners, some things they do only for ideas of peace and some democratic principles and values, but at the same time they try to have some benefits or maybe improve their influence in the world, make their country dominate in the world. And for this reason, we can speak about new colonialism, like some indirect influence. Maybe you hear about the signs of American new colonialism, like the dollar colonialism, which means that for using all over the world the currency exchange for dollars, it logical conclusion that the United States will have some benefits and that it is profitable for United States for share their currency all over the world. And also you can remember that in different countries like Iraq, United States provides some military economic help to save democracy, but at the same time they use the oil sources and some other from the interest in using these materials. That's why they try to help and try to take a part in some problems, internal problems of different countries. Also, a very popular kind of foreign policy is balance of power. I think you hear about this concept, and even our first classes we have a conversation about the author of this concept. I mean Morgenthau, someone from I don't remember 10 or 11th group present this author and his ideas. The main content of foreign policy of balance of power means that its aim to create or preserve equilibrium or disequilibrium. Mostly it's equilibrium based on military power, on economic domination, and when I prepared my presentation, I see some photo when the equilibrium based on some military weapons. At the same time, when we use this term, we mean only that it should be some compromise in international relations, and that all countries try to provide their national interests, but at the same time, each state understands the opportunities of peaceful life and try to save equilibrium by diplomacy, by using some informational pressure on their other states. And that's why for a long time we have some peaceful world, but while balance of power always means that in some case, in some situation, it can be disequilibrium. We always have a threat to collapse of this balance. And for the Cold War, the world was safety and without any great war conflicts, but at the same time, few dominated countries continue to evaluate their military weapons to create a strong army and so on. That means that they try to be a symbolic, to have a symbolic power and to show their power, their possibilities for the other side of the world. Also, we have few close to each other types of foreign policy. It's an alliance policy and a bit different meaning, but also the picture can be used for this term is allegiance. Let's begin from the first, or maybe someone can guess and can set can say why they are on lens, перчатках. Чому вони в перчатках? What do you think? What is the picture for Alliance is painted by some unknown for me painter, by not the simple hand without nothing, but with the I forget the word, plans, yes? Vladislav.
Yes, can I?
Yes, please.
I think it's because these two countries for today they have alliance, but if the situation will change, they can forget the agreements and make something with some other countries.
Any other ideas? No ideas. I think that Vladislav is right, because the policy of alliance based on the idea that separately the country or a state can solve its problem. It usually created not on the base of some general interest, but at the understanding that they should join to other state for being more powerful and for have some guarantees from their companies, their partner for save the peace and have no threats for their own state. At the same time, allegiance means that some country, some less developed country try to adopt this their policy to become a part of some alliance, that they are ready to change something, to have support and they hoping that their dominated countries will help them to have some development, some benefits, some possibilities and opportunities, and that's why they support some state. That means that again, they don't want to be a partner, but they understand their obligations, their objective circumstance for such joining, for such interaction. And an opposite policy, an antonym to the alliance is non-alignment policy, which means refuse to join to existing military alliance, that they try to be neutral and don't want to take a part to give a contribution to any alliances. And also we have some types of foreign policy, like isolation, neutrality, and status quo. Who can guess for what kind of what type of foreign policy the picture is? Is it status quo, neutrality, or isolation on the picture?
I think it's neutrality, because we see this black figures that doesn't take each side, that just by itself exists.
Any other ideas? No, so you are right. It's a neutrality. I can say that I couldn't find status quo because there was only photos of famous rock group, and isolation is a bit has a bit other meaning. As usual, isolation means that one country try to have little participation in the world affairs, and it's try to have less relations than others. The neutrality means that some states adopted their policy to not join of each part of the belligerents. And what is the difference between neutrality and non-alignment? The difference is based on the understanding neutrality as the policy in a condition of some world war. In the peaceful world, we usually speak about the no-alignment policy, not the neutrality. And the last in this slide is status quo. That means that one state try to preserve its own status in international systems, and they not try to adopt to another one. They not play like the other part vis-a-vis want to do him, or don't want to react on any pressure, and they do what they want, provide their own national interest, while the other can be don't agree, with the with this state, but this actor don't want to change nothing in their policies. They believe that that their policy is the best, and they shouldn't find out the partner in the world. And very nice picture for illustrate such direction, such types of foreign policy, like revisionism, nationalistic universalism, and peaceful coexistence. We can say that all the mentioned types, based on the democratic values, on the modern international law, which created our after Second War, and the differences between them in such cases. Revisionism is favorably modifies the states over nil international status in the system. We can say that it is a contrast of status quo. It means that country try to do their best for be a part of international system. They try to change their national law and some practices to be a member of some alliance, and national universalism based in certain universal principles like human rights, like peaceful life, like peaceful interaction between the countries, equality of different international actors, and so on. And peaceful coexistence based on the same ideas, but it also pay attention to some ideas of peaceful methods of deciding and of solving any problems during the interaction. And for many years, we speak about the multipolar system of the world, in which each member of the world system have each place and a role. Even a little countries can hope for their contribution to the world policy, their membership in some international organizations, like European Parliament or United Nations organization, institutes. And for this reason, they can create peaceful coexistence because they are a part of world policy. Nobody from your groups can join the meeting with the European Parliament member, not member, student in European Parliament, but I record this meeting. If you are interested in, I also can share her attitude to European Parliament, her experience of what she is. She have some interesting conclusions about it. Maybe it will be interesting for your future profession, and maybe you also can be a member of European Parliament. So I'll share this video also in your groups. And at the end of discussion about the types of foreign policy, I'd like to ask you if you had give some examples of each type of foreign policy. Change one of them and give me some examples. Who wants, who can, please?
You mean to tell you some countries with this?
Yes, for example, revisionist country, imperialist country, neutral country.
I can give you an example of neutral country, and I think Switzerland is a great example, as they hold neutralism in every conflict.
Some countries after the Second World War should be neutral by the international agreements, and we can see that after the beginning of the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, some of the countries refused from the neutral status, and it's changed as a world system. So thank you for this example. Any other examples? I'm sure you know it, because even in our previous class, we discussed some kind of international policy.
Can I?
Of course.
As an example of isolation policy, it can be North Korea as the greatest, I think, example. Right now, it's also Russia, I think, can be described in such way. Also, Turkmenistan, for example, is also a very close country and very look like North Korea.
Thank you very much. I'd like to highlight that such question can be on your exam, so pay attention to it and maybe find out the examples later. And at the end, I'd like to mention a few tools, few methods of foreign policy. As you see on your screens, we can speak about the tools from different social spheres, not only political. As usual, we understand national interest and diplomacy like the part of political weapons, but I'd like to mention that international relations not always connected with the term power. We start our conversations, our meetings from the idea that policy is always a relations of using or making some decision, using power, or making some decisions connected with the power. And the political power means that we can make some person, some institute, some state, make whatever we want in spite of their wills, and we only should have some sources to realize some decision. In international policy, there are no actor who can be understood like the higher dominated sovereign, and it always a struggle for domination in the world. That's why we can say that it is monocentral power for some states that, for example, United States can make a decision for all over the world. That's why it is hard to find out the limits between international relations and policy. And national interests lay down in a base of policy, foreign policy, and like all other policies, it is the main goal to realize, to provide national interests. And even when we speak about some international general principles, we should remember that national interest will be the main condition for realizing general principles in each policy of each country. Also, when we speak about diplomacy, we can describe it like communication between between representatives of different countries, when some person speak like a symbol of all nation. When we watch TV and saw the visits of main persons of our leaders to other countries, we can realize that they speak and represent the ideas of all people, in our case is Ukrainian people, and that's why diplomacy have some symbolic sense, and we usually criticize some sentences of our representatives because diplomacy should be very deeply realize it, and all the world have a great value. And if someone will make a mistake in their reports, in their speeches, it can be a part of international conflict or some problems in relations between countries. And I think you know that mostly diplomatic relations is rather established, official. They have rules for all meetings, for the behavior of all the participants of different diplomatic meetings, other measurements. And when we speak about diplomacy, we mean that there are some interaction between representatives of the sovereign states. Also, we understand military force like a tool of foreign policy. It's not always means the use of some military force, some military weapons, but as we know, some states have a status of nuclear states. Some try to have a strong army, which can be a guarantee for peace only in a peaceful world. The most popular for today is weapon of economic policies, of trying to have some restriction for those who don't follow the rules, and give the opportunities to those who are perspective and peaceful country. In a modern world appeared some new direction of foreign policy, like cybersecurity, environmental protection, and energy policies. I hope you know what they mean. It's usually the problems which have the decision not in inside the national state, but it should be sources from different countries in this region, or even in all over the world, like environmental problem. We can solve them only all together, and there are a lot of examples in political practice when we have many threats which join countries and make them to have some interaction, some invited groups, institutes for solve some general problems, not only national. It's all that I'd like to